Wednesday, as always. Thank you ever so much for joining us on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you. So to kick us off, as usual, if you've got anything you're excited about, anything you want to tell the people, we'd love to hear it.
Mate, so this week, in fact yesterday, for the first time in probably about a year and a half, I ate beef.
Oh my God. Oh God. Oh.
Back to beef.
Sorry, mate. I think you might have, I think the internet might have gone then. Did you say you were back to beef?
I think you're serious then. We've already had technical difficulties this morning.
Yeah, that was a bit harsh of you, really.
It was, so through a couple of conversations and thinking about kind of why I was doing it and why people choose to do it generally in terms of going more like vegetarian, plant-based, whatever they decide to do. I was talking to people about how I think more people should be flexible with it and not have to feel like they're pigeonholed into like, oh, I'm vegetarian, so I can't possibly do this, or I can't be vegan because I really like cheese. I'm a big proponent of being like, well, then be vegan, but eat some cheese. You know, you don't have to call yourself a technical quote unquote vegan. You can still do everything plant-based as if someone would, but add in that thing that works for you.
Yeah.
And that's still going to make a positive difference and have a net positive result on the thing that you're trying to improve. And the thing for me was that I was being vegetarian, but in terms of, especially when I've been trying to gain weight lately, gain muscle, pretty much the only legit protein source that I was able to have was whey protein isolate. That was the one thing that it's still vegetarian, it's not vegan. But everything else was a bit of a struggle for me in terms of getting enough protein in. And it's also a very lean protein source, so I wasn't getting any fats in throughout the day. And I wanted to do something in a way that works for me, something that I felt was going to support that goal. But I haven't changed anything else about my diet. I'm not, calling it quits on everything and just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But I have started to eat beef again as of yesterday. Going to give it a little run, give it a try for a couple of weeks and see how I find it. That first meal yesterday was weird. Like, it was really strange eating it again. Like the mouthfeel and the smell of it all. And yeah, it's been a long time. It took me a long time to get through 2 bits of beef yesterday.
What did you have?
But just like burgers.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was wondering, what does someone who hasn't had it for so long, what's the dive back in?
I think I definitely dived in a bit too heavy. I should have gone with like some mince and put it in like a chili or some sort of sauce.
I was thinking chili or bolognese.
Yeah, pure beef instead, and it was a lot.
The steak down and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's a big change. It was a big moment. But you know what? I'm happy that I'm able to pivot and make those decisions and not read too much into it, not let it get too deep, and not have to do Instagram posts justifying it and whatever else. Like, I think a lot of people could do better by just doing what works for them and making things fit their circumstances without having to feel the pressure of being fully vegan, fully sustainable, fully plant-based, whatever it is. You can do smaller steps and also iterate along the way. I don't have to change to a full McDonald's and pot noodle diet now. I can still continue on the exact way I have been, but introduce beef a few times a week and crack on as normal.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of questions for you, actually, because this is going to be quite interesting. So firstly, did you notice any difference in like energy, in digestion, mood, anything that people would tend to say there's a big difference in? Did you notice anything there?
No, nothing. No, nothing. I mean, it's only once yesterday. It was the first time I introduced it. But other than just finding it a bit difficult to get through at the start, I was absolutely fine. In the back of my head, I was slightly worried that I was going to be up all night throwing it up. Just in case my body like stopped producing the enzymes, didn't want to break it down anymore after so much time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
What was that?
I said that was exactly the lines I was thinking. As soon as you stop doing something, the body's going to downregulate the processes that it needs to do those things. It's very clever, but very annoying if you're, I've seen it happen in people who like stop eating bread because they think it's bad for you. And they're like, oh, I can't eat bread. It's not part of my diet. And then by the time they go back to bread, they are genuinely unable to process it so well. And they end up getting really bloated, really kind of uncomfortable, very bad digestion. And it's like, well, now you have done it. So the next question then I'd ask is, On that note, and you touched on something really important, and I think is worth very much underlining that point, which was, just because you want to be, say, vegan for whatever reason, and we all know there's a multitude of reasons that somebody would choose to do a different diet, and everyone to their own in that respect. The thing, do you think would be fair to say is that it's easier to be, we spoke about this last week, kind of that all or nothing mentality. And, if you are, say, vegan, then you are a part of a group, and that makes it kind of a united front almost. But if you're not fully vegan, you're not fully omnivorous, then do you feel like you're actually in a bit of a, I'm not in anyone's team kind of thing? And that could be more difficult potentially.
I think a lot of people get that feeling and they let it hold them back. They think they're going to be judged unfavorably if they're not fully sticking to what a vegan should do. You've probably seen this with friends and family. You go out for a meal and it's the kind of, oh, I know I shouldn't be having this, but I am going to. Or someone says, oh, I am normally plant-based throughout the week, but I'm just going to have eggs for brunch this weekend or something. I think I honestly couldn't care less. I really,
No.
I don't judge you unfavorably for that in the slightest. But it's a feeling of people wanting to belong to some part of some group, I think.
Yeah.
And like we said last week, like you said there, it's harder to define your own middle ground and be confident with that and be comfortable in that. And sometimes also, like we said with last week's podcast, it might require a period of time where you go to one extreme. So maybe you start off being vegan, you really go down
Yeah.
that route, you go hard, you get used to cooking vegan food, making it taste good, you get used to eating, selecting things at the grocery store. And then eventually, once you've got used to that, then you can transition over to something that you're more flexible with and you're more comfortable with. You can feel more confident within that. Whereas if you were to just say, I'm kind of sort of going to go vegan, but I'm going to eat this thing on that day and this thing on when I go out to eat, then you might never actually make those changes to the point where it
Yeah.
makes a measurable difference. It's always going to be down to personal nuance, as everyone's going to be sick and tired of me saying at this point.
Kind of change your name on the podcast. Podcast of Xander and Personal Nuance. Yeah, I think that's interesting because I have some friends and they followed a vegan diet throughout the week and ate meat and whatever else during the weekends. And I believe they were coming from a place of environmental factors.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't do this because they believed that it was, it wasn't from a personal standpoint of we don't want to harm animals or anything like that. Although, you know what I mean? It's not like the animal rights kind of system. It's more of an environmental one. And just, for them, it was like, if we reduce our meat intake 5 out of 7 days, we're kind of hitting our target. It doesn't mean that we're going all out with it. And Katie and I did something very similar because I eat meat. Katie eats meat, and it's something I genuinely enjoy. I really do enjoy it. And so for me, it would be very difficult to give it up. And I don't see personally, in my opinion, in my view, a reason to do that. But what I do see a thing to do is put my shoe in and say, I need to make more effort to make and eat higher quality, less transported versions. If I can get it from a local farm shop, for example, and I eat less because of that. So say I spent 50 quid a week on meat, which I don't, but it's just a round number. If I spent £50 in Tesco, for example, versus £50 at a farm shop, I'm going to get a lot less from the farm shop, but it's going to be a lot higher quality. It's going to be far less traveled, for want of a better word. If it's a local farm shop and that farm's produced it, it's not come from New Zealand, for example, or anywhere around the world. So I feel like we definitely made that choice and that change to help the environment and still do something that we wanted to do. But it's exactly like you say, it's that personal nuance as well, isn't it? It's what you want to do, and it's kind of trying to push away those thoughts of like, oh, what will they think of me? Or, oh, look, and I think that's what rules a lot of people's lives. But I guess once you can push that away, that's a real step towards freedom, right?
Mm-hmm. And people forget that it's a sum total of many parts as well. Not just say, take environmental factors. It's not just purely what you eat. It's also things like you said, distance that the food travels, or even if you want to take it to a completely different realm, what about distance that you travel?
Yeah.
These people who spend all year absolutely ranting and raving about sustainability and how everyone has to do better and everyone should be plant-based. And this month they're in Bali. Last week they were in Australia. Next month they're going to be in Mauritius. Then they're going to come back to the UK. Then they're going around Europe. Those people are doing way more
Yeah.
damage in terms of environmental factors than people who are eating meat a few times a week at home. And that's
Yeah.
not a value judgment, good or bad. But what it is to say is that you have to look at things on a greater macro scale of your life, rather than just purely thinking this person eats chicken, they must be a piece of shit and I'm better than them because I eat tofu.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, 100%. Kind of thing. And effectively, the headline just says, shake diet offered on NHS to fight type 2 diabetes. And then the kind of opening line is just thousands more people in England with type 2 diabetes will be offered the chance to try a soup and shake diet weight loss plan for free on the NHS. Now, without diving into the nuances of diabetes, because for you and I, that's kind of outside the realm of what we would usually discuss, unless we got Talia back, of course, she could happily carry us through with that one. But I want to talk more about the approach of this. And have you just heard that for the first time? Because if you did, I'd be
Yeah.
really interested to know what you feel about that, because I know what I felt yesterday when I read that. But let me know your
Yeah,
thoughts.
no, that's the first time I've heard that term, soup and shake diet, for it, and free on the NHS as well. I mean, that just screams fad and detox to me. You know, these kind of liquid based 800 calorie a day diets, though I realize that I'm also judging that based on a headline. So do you know more? Do you want to teach me more
Yeah,
about
hang
it?
on. Um, effectively, they've said that some patients have already benefited from the year-long diet and exercise plan. So it is exercise as well, which is why the NHS in
Mhm.
England wants to expand the scheme to more people. And they just kind of labeled here what is diabetes, and it's not exactly given a great amount of detail, to be honest. So it just says here, Bev, one of my first patients to benefit from the diet during trial, said my goal for the first 8 weeks of low-calorie diet was to lose 5% of my body weight, which I achieved in 6 weeks, and I've lost a total of over 10 kilos. My type 2 diabetes is now in remission. But I cannot see anywhere where it says the actual results or the actual kind of methods of which they use this. So I'd have to look into it with more detail in terms of the scrutiny of the actual system and how that works. But I had a discussion with people yesterday, and as I said, without diving into the kind of micros and macros of this system, I had a couple of conversations yesterday with people with regards to actually drinking calories. When I read that first, I thought that is the complete opposite of what I would be
Mm.
recommending people to do. Because when we're trying to gain weight, when we're trying to be less satiated in order to fit more food in, drinking calories is a great idea. Because of course they go in, you don't feel satiated by them, and you could drink them a lot more. You know, if any of you have been to, I think it's Five Guys and had one of their smoothies, they pack like 1,300 calories, and I've never had one, I've just heard of them. Um, and they pack like 1,300 calories, and they're pretty easy to drink, I imagine. And you know, if you were to get
Yeah, we used to
1,300
go to
calories,
Byron Burger in Exeter when it existed, RIP.
oh yeah,
And my mate always used to get like a Oreo milkshake, and that was like, I think that was 900 and something calories, and it was pathetically small for
yeah,
what it actually was. Yeah, it always
literally.
used to shock me.
And this is it, you know. So to me, I'd be saying, you know, for clients who are struggling to gain weight, you know, we'd recommend drink some more of them, drink some more of your calories. You know, get a carb powder, protein shakes. You
Hmm.
know, all of this stuff is a great idea. So when it comes to then a shake in terms of weight loss, I feel like that does really deter the actual point of sustainable weight loss from the perspective of just normal habits, routine, and stuff. Because fundamentally, you're not going to continue just drinking a shake for the entirety of your life. So I feel like, and again, we're kind of attacking this face on without knowing the full spectrum behind it. But from a simple, would I take a shake to lose weight? No, I wouldn't. I would
Hmm.
make sure I ate as much food as possible to ensure that I was more satiated more often than not. That would help me then achieve my goals in a sustainable manner.
I think what you have to acknowledge, though, we have to acknowledge in this, I don't want this to sound like some sort of conspiracy theory, because I'm not that guy. I don't have a tinfoil hat and I'm not worried about 5G rays. But when the government bring out a weight loss initiative, it's not really the government's main goal to do what we do. We're fitness coaches, and people listening to this are into fitness. The government are not. The government are in the business of getting more votes. And so for them, what is most effective is saying, hey guys, look, we rolled out this soup and shake thing to 5,000 people. Of these 5,000 people, we were able to get 2,000 people into remission from type 2 diabetes. That's something they can use as a campaign poster come election time. That's something they can talk about that they're positively doing for the health of the country. That's something they can get data on to talk about how great they are because of the NHS. They're not actually really doing it to teach people what we try and teach people. I think it's actually almost a different objective, and it wouldn't be as sexy and headline grabbing for the NHS and for the government to say, hey guys, we've actually sat down and educated a few hundred people in a room, every month, and we've gone through what calories and macros and micros are, and how to diet long term and sustain it. And Jill from Huddersfield now is actually going to be in a slightly better position for the next 20 years to see her grandkids grow up. Like, you can't get that into a snappy campaign header.
No.
Whereas you can say, look what we did for 2,000 people in a very direct way. So I think when fitness people jump in on this and judge it unfavorably, I think we're missing what the bigger picture is and what the kind of bigger objective is. I agree that it's not how we would do things, and it's not what I would recommend in terms of like best long-term results. But I think they're going at it from a different angle.
The way I see this, though, is that they're only solving one problem to cause themselves a lot more in the future. So if you get a load of people on this diet, for example, unless they have kind of coaching to get back into normal life where they don't have soup and shakes for eternity, what happens then? Do they go back into remission at that point because they gain all that weight back again? And what I was saying to somebody yesterday when we were talking about this at the dinner table is that when COVID started, they got a professional in to deal with that scientific base of information, right? They said, this is a health crisis. This is what we're going to do. And it just seems like they don't necessarily bring in the professionals when it comes to health and fitness. Because although you might have a point in terms of the bigger picture and what they're trying to achieve with this, I can't help but think it would be well worth starting from the ground up. And although it's not as sexy as you say, you would probably make a much bigger impact in more people's lives in terms of, the next 20 years, as opposed to the next 2 or 1. It would be like, to me, teaching people and aiding people in stopping smoking versus just taking their cigarettes away from them. At the end of the day, it might stop them smoking for a week, but they're going to get them back somehow. It's not teaching them to live without smoking. It's just not allowing them to smoke anymore. So I see where you're coming from. I just feel like it's not a conducive method. And I think it feeds a lot of what we spoke about, that part of the brain, which is like, okay, quick results, here we go. And I don't feel like that's going to be helping people.
I agree. I agree it's not conducive. I agree it's not the right way forward. I think they're just coming at it from a different perspective. And I think even with the comparison you gave with COVID as well, it's a similar thing. There's one thing in terms of listening to quote unquote science around it, but there wasn't a lot of data at the time because it was so new. And so actually a lot of what they did was just reactive to what other countries were doing. This country's locked down, so we're going to lock down. They've done this, so we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And once data started coming out on masks, okay, now we'll bring in masks. And everything's very much like, what are we showing to the public? What is our, how are we kind of saving face? And I think it's the same with this sort of thing. I think it's a case of saying, what can we do to look like we're being responsive and look like we're being reactive? And hopefully we can get some extreme results. Because let's face it, being on very low calorie diets will cause some people to crash in weight. Like that example you gave from that news article, that lady had lost 10 kilos. You are going to get a handful of people that will achieve that because they're
Yeah.
on extremely low calorie diets. Now they're also going to rebound. Probably 95% of those people are going to rebound and they're going to gain that weight back. And then the government are going to forget about it, brush it under the carpet, and bring out another fancy new initiative in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree that's 100% not the right way to go with it. But I think that's the angle that they're realistically taking on it.
Mm.
And I wish that they did get more fitness people involved with it. I wish that they did get more experts in, but I just don't think it's the reality of how they're going to deal with it.
No. I'd be really, sometimes I get really interested in public health. I think it'd be a really interesting thing to be involved in. But then I also think about it, I think it must be, for a real professional in science, a really frustrating area to be a part of, because you're battling what's better for people's health and probably what's better for the finances that they have to deal with at that time. And I think that must be part of a lot of situations. You know, how can we get X amount of people to lose weight, but not do it in a very expensive way? You know, how can we guarantee that some people will get results here? And it's like you say, you know, if you took 100 people in a room and said, right, you're all going to eat chicken, broccoli, and rice 3 days, three meals a day for the next 10 weeks, and you'll look exactly as you want to look. You know, probably a small percentage of those people would manage to do that the whole time. But the rest of them would have dropped out. And so I guess the proof is in us waiting to see what the results say, and then seeing kind of what the long term of this is. But for now, I think when I read that, I was just quite disappointed. I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
But
No, I am.
as
And
you
it's
say,
a series of things like that. You know, we speak about things in the past, like, you know, the sugar tax they were discussing bringing in, and they bring in all these sort of short-term measures that look like they're going to make a difference on the surface.
yeah,
But like you've rightly identified, you have to start at the grassroots, and you have to make the grassroots accessible. You
yeah,
can't just say to people, you should be eating fruit. You know, they'll put up things like choose berries instead of sweets. And then a single mum of four who's on benefits will walk into Tesco and see that a packet of berries is £3.50
yeah,
and a packet of sweets is £1. And she goes, I'm getting the sweets. Of
yeah,
course she does. Like, that's
yeah,
the logical decision. And so you need to make the grassroots accessible. You need to teach people how to cook with healthy foods, with fruits and veg. You need to teach people how to make them taste good. You need to teach people how to cook them efficiently and quickly, because then otherwise they're just going to be reaching for ready meals and accessible stuff. You can't just kind of skip right to the top line, like you gave with the cigarette example. Oh,
yeah,
if we take them away from you, you'll stop consuming them. You know, in the same way that, oh, if we make these foods more expensive, you'll just stop buying them. No, it means you're going to be poorer because of it,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
And you're just putting, you know, you're backing people into a tight spot with it instead.
I did my level 4 in diabetes and obesity, and the lady who took that course, it was a 5-day course. It was quite good. And the lady who took that course got us to a really interesting task. And she said, right, guys in your teams, I want you to figure out how much it would cost you to get as many calories as possible into a family of 5. So the idea was low cost, high calories. And then I want you to do the same task again, but do the opposite. So I don't want you to worry about cost, but what I do want you to do is shop sensibly, but give these people what we would class as a healthy, quote unquote, meal. And I was telling someone about this yesterday. The amount of calories, I think we spent £1.40 a person, and in this one meal managed to get like 1,400 calories per
Jesus.
person. And it literally was like, even in somewhere like Waitrose, you can get a pizza for £1, which has 800 calories in it. So, you know, if you go to somewhere and get like a fully loaded pizza that costs like £1.50, you get 3 of them. Then you get some oven baked potato waffles. Shout out to the waffles. And you get some, you know, a couple tins of beans and stuff. It costs literally like £7, and you get about 1,300 calories each in a family of 5. Then if you were to eat healthily, so we speak, chicken, veg, you know, some other carbohydrate source like pasta or rice or potatoes, stuff like that, it costs like £3.40. You know, and when you look at that in a family of 5, the difference is, you know, £3.40, that's the best part of £20, or you look at £1.40, which is £7 basically.
and it takes more time, and it takes
Yeah,
more thought, and it
yeah,
takes more creativity, and it takes a knowledge of how to cook. There's just, for people at a grassroots level, everything is stacked against them and nothing is
yeah.
stacked in their favor. And every fitness person can give you all the motivational spiel in the world and all this, no one cares, work harder, you should learn this, you should try this, you should do that, it should be important to you. But like we talk about with habits, you think if you want to instill a good habit, then you make it as frictionless as possible. You make it as smooth as possible. If you want to dissuade people away from a poor habit, you make it as full of friction as possible. You make it as difficult as possible. And at the moment, for people who are in lower socioeconomic classes and people who are obese, people who have type 2 diabetes, everything is pointing them towards that direction of high calorie, high fat, poor quality processed food that's cheap, and nothing is pointing them in the direction of, as you say, the quote unquote healthier stuff, which is harder to prepare, more expensive, harder to get hold of. It just stacks the odds against them.
It's cyclic as well. I think that's the worst point. Like once you get on, it's literally like a little roundabout, because you have this situation where time is of the essence for a lot of people. But if you have, say, like you said as the example, you live in a lower socio-economic area. It always baffles me how the most expensive shops are always in those areas. If you go into like a cost cut and you try and buy 3 onions, it's going to cost you £3. Whereas if you went to Tesco, you get 3 onions for £1. And as you say, I think a statistic, and someone can happily call me out on this if this is wrong, but a statistic I heard last year was that people after 1990, only 80% or only 20% of those people know how to cook more than 3 meals. So anyone born after 1990, only 20% of those people know how to cook 3 meals. And so, if in fact, this could be a good one. If we were to say, what would we do? What would you do for convenience? Because we're both massive fans of food convenience, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
I think for a starter, I don't think ready meals are made as terribly as they used to be. And I think they can be quite convenient, but I think you have to be careful of those in portion and in relative stature. Some people will see that I eat ready meals quite a lot, but I tend to get them off Muscle Food because, I mean, one, they're really nice, and two, they tend to be a lot less calories for what you get. But if I was to have a ready meal outside of that, I tend to get something which is very high protein. That's the first thing I look at. How much protein does this thing have? Then I'll look at overall calories. I'm not that bothered about fats and carbs if I'm in a massive rush. I just want to know that I get my protein in, really. Calories are important. And then what I tend to do is buy a bag of either frozen veg or salad, because that will fill me up enough to not want to go then to something a bit later. I mean, that would be one example, but like I said, you're a huge fan of food convenience as well. So it'd be cool to hear what you would do.
What I would suggest to people who want convenience but also good quality food.
Yeah, because we've spoken about it as if, it's something you can do, and we both have the tools to give them some examples. So I feel like that probably would be a good shout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that I always try to do and always used to encourage clients to do as well is to try and get someone in the chain of the creation of that food to do the prep for you. So that could be as simple as buying pre-cooked, pre-sliced bags of veg, and all you have to do is chuck them in the microwave for 3 minutes to steam them. Or it could be that when you're buying fish like salmon or meat like chicken, you buy the stuff that's already pre-cooked, pre-seasoned, kind of pre-made, and all you have to do is get it out of the packet, either heat it up or not, and eat it. And things like that can get you the same sorts of foods that you might be cooking anyway in that circumstance, but it would save you half an hour of cooking and prep time. The problem with that is that it is going to be more expensive than you buying it yourself and doing the prep. So that kind of solves the convenience side of things, but not the cost side of things. And so you have to weigh up for you in your life, where's the balance got to be? It's like one of these things where you have a triangle and it's like pick two. You've got cost, then you've got like good quality food and health, and then you've got convenience. And I think there are ways to have all three of those, but you have to be realistic about like which two you're going to lean towards a little bit
Yeah.
more and which you're going to prioritize. If you're someone that has the resources to eat convenient but good quality food, go for it. Pay for someone to do your meal prep or whatever. Buy those higher quality ready meals like you mentioned. If not, then you may have to compromise on price and be willing to buy things like potatoes that are going to be really cheap, but you're going to have to be the person to, you know, chop them up, dress them up, cook them up in the way that you want to. And that's going to take a little bit more time. So where are the things where you can give? Where are the things that you can take a little bit more from? I think the important thing is understanding that it doesn't have to be all or nothing in one direction. Like if you want to have convenience, it doesn't have to be poor quality food. There's always going to be options.
Yeah, and I think that is where people should take responsibility. So, you know, we spoke about how a lot of fitness people would say, hey, you know, it's within your realm, it's within your control. I think it's, you know, we talk about this a lot. It's about sitting down and having an honest chat with yourself. What are you actually able to do at this point in time? And as Jack, you rightly said, are you someone who has the resources, who has the finances, but maybe doesn't have the time? Therefore, you could get these, you know, healthier ready meals or the kind of meal prep companies to do your meal prep for you? Or are you someone who maybe doesn't have much time and doesn't have a great deal of finance? Then, you know, in that situation, you have to be honest with yourself and say, look, this is where I am. What can I make do with this? What can I do with this opportunity or with this situation? And playing the ball there to your strengths as such. You know, if you're someone who doesn't know how to cook, then what I would recommend doing is on a Sunday afternoon, for example, is cooking one thing, spending a lot of time cooking that one thing, you know, whether that's a bolognese or something that you can batch cook. That means that in the middle of the week, you have literally 5 ready meals ready to go. And I actually did this at university, and I still do it now, but I've got a bit more, for want of a better term, time. We actually make one thing a week, and what ends up happening is that we have like an array of little ready meals. So as ready meals, I mean like ones we've made and packed into the freezer, so that in the morning, if we're both going to be home late or we're both working long hours, all we'll do is say, right, we'll just whip one of these out. And we've got like a little collection now. We've got like some curry, some chilies, some bologneses. But they did all take some time to make in the first place. That's the key here. Like they did all take a couple of hours to put together in the first place. But that couple of hours that I spent on a Sunday doing that meant that I didn't have to spend any time at all in the middle of the week. The only thing I had to do was put some rice on, or I had to put some pasta going or something. You know, it's really straightforward. But I would encourage you, you know, if that is your case, if you are low on time and low on finances, to do some kind of batch cooking. I think it would be really helpful, both in terms of cost. As you say, it's much cheaper to buy things as they come rather than pre-prepared. But at the same time, you know, you will learn a skill as well, and it should save you some money. It's just whether you have that time, and you know, some things are really quite simple to cook. It just takes a little bit of a YouTube tutorial and a bit of hope.
Yeah, one I've just thought of as well for the situation of if you're pretty short on time, but you're also pretty short on finances as well. Something I used to do back in university is just cut down the sizes of whatever those main meals I'm eating are. Like say there's some lower quality kind of food options that are just convenient, but you feel like you have to do them because they're the cheaper, kind of easier options. What you can do is cut down those portion sizes and replace that with something that is more healthful, but is also really cheap. So you can get so many fruits like bananas, absolute pennies, literally. You can get some apples really cheap. You can get certain veg really, really cheap. You know, there's things that you can do and just like add those in as a little bit of an adjunct to a meal and portion those off with it. So you're not having to like fully change everything and change your lifestyle and be looking down the barrel and be like, shit, where do I start? What do I even do? You can still eat most of the same stuff that you're eating, but bring down the calories from that stuff and then kind of supplement those meals with some more healthful options that are also convenient. Because when we're talking about all this stuff, we're talking about calories, we're talking about type 2 diabetes, obesity, it all comes back to energy intake. And if you are bringing down that overall total energy intake and you're replacing some of that with some more micronutrient dense, healthful foods, that is going to positively impact you. It may not be optimal. It may not be ideal. It may not even be what you expect to be hearing coming out of 2 fitness coaches' mouths. but we can tell you that it's going to be better to do that, instead of you just saying, oh, well, I can't be healthy right now, I don't understand how to cook that, I can't afford it, making all these excuses because you're overwhelmed by it, and therefore just not making a decision.
I'll tell you what as well, the example I had in my mind there is a pizza. If you were to share a pizza with, say, your partner when you get home late at night, say that pizza has 800 calories in it, which is quite average for a pizza. Some go lower, most go higher. If you halve that pizza, you have 400 calories. And then if you make some, if you whack some frozen veg into the microwave, or as you said, Jack, get yourself some fruit or some, if you can get a bag of carrots, I think in Tesco's for like 60p. And I'm not saying eat a whole bag of carrots, but I am saying if you were to, grate a couple of carrots, add them to your salad, you've actually got a really filling meal there, probably more filling than the actual pizza would have been on the whole itself. One, because you have a bit more of a dynamic meal in terms of fiber and in terms of volume, but also because you have not just got this kind of pizza wheel, which I find really quite, if you ever have a straight pizza versus a pizza wheel, I always find I eat a pizza wheel quicker. So if I have a round pizza, because it's almost like a competition, it's like, the countdown clock, it's like me eating a pizza, just racing around the circle. Whereas if I have a straight one, I'm just like, I'm gonna take my time. It's all like psychology, I guess, but interesting
Yeah,
things.
giving you some sort of pattern interrupt with meals, I think, is important. Just bringing in some sort of fiber source, some sort of side salad with it, some sort of
Yeah.
veggies, and having some sort of rule, I think, really helps as well. Like when I'm cutting, for example, I will not have a meal without veggies or salad.
Yeah.
That's not because the key to getting shredded is carrots or lettuce or whatever. It's just the fact that I know that if I include every main meal, if I include that in every single main meal, I'm going to bulk out my general meals. My satiation is going to be better. My fiber is going to be higher. You'll be making lower calorie food choices generally. You can have these little rules that you just adhere to, and that means even if you are still, as Xander said, eating pizzas, etc., you can make them better choices on the whole.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a few questions now from the gang on the gram. I put out a little thing yesterday just to see what people wanted to know. Got some quite good ones, actually. I've got a really funny one as well, which I'm going to go with first because I quite enjoyed it. And that is, if you could only train quads or hams for the rest of your life, which would it be?
Oh, quads.
Oh, I went with hams.
You would look ridiculous, wouldn't you? Huge hams and a completely flat back of leg. But then I also think it would look ridiculous to have huge hams and zero quads. Yeah, I'd have to go quads.
I went with hamstrings, so I just thought, oh, imagine that, just having these huge hanging hams and then just no quad, which has pretty much been my right leg for the last 2 years. No quad, some ham.
Yeah, that's why, mate. You're biased.
Yeah, I have a bias, it's true. I enjoyed that one. Right, I've got some more serious questions now. RIR comes up a lot when I do these things. I think people want to know. There's a couple questions here on RIR. So this one, I think, probably makes the most sense to ask. And that is, how do you know what a real RIR is? And how do you figure that out?
You have to have set definitions for it. So with clients, we give them an RIR table, and that has definitions. And you have to be extremely honest with yourself about those definitions. You have to be willing to ask your coach questions if you feel you're murky on certain situations with it, you're not too sure.
Yeah.
I think you first have to know what genuine physiological failure is. Physiological failure, not I give up, this feels difficult, this is painful. Like actual, if I tried to do another leg extension, my legs will not do it with good form. That is like physiological failure, compared to just being in pain. And then you work backwards from there. An RIR of 1 is 1 rep before you reach that point. 2 is 2 reps before you reach that point. And the harder thing, I think, is knowing which weight to select in order to get to that level. And that's definitely something that takes a lot of sessions to work out and to be able to be intuitive with. But you first have to really go there in terms of failure, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I have a couple of points. My first point is the actual definitions need to be there. Yeah, I totally agree with that. If you don't have your definitions of what you actually think that is, and I find videoing definitions quite good. Like, I'll challenge
Mm.
my own thoughts with my views. So I often say to clients, can you send me a video of that? And they're like, yeah, this is RIR1. I'm looking at thinking that it's definitely not RIR1. Like, I can see far more in a tank there. And I challenge myself with it sometimes. I'll do a set and I'll be like, fuck, I've completely missed that. What I thought was RIR 1 or 2, and I'm looking at thinking the bar's not changed speed for the whole first 6 reps. There's no way I only had 2 left after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really good to challenge yourself. And there's nothing wrong with failing in doing so. I've got some videos where I genuinely know if I tried to do one more rep, I would have died. And that's fine. And that's kind of what I hold myself accountable on those levels. So I find that actually having videos sometimes of yourself doing things that are RIR1 or failure can be helpful as a starting point to know where you are. But first, to get there, you have to find that physiological failure. And this stuck with me from university. And it was a study done on a time trial, a bike time trial, where they injected a group with an epidural, I believe. And basically,
I
it was
remember this
the
study.
difference between peripheral fatigue and central fatigue. So basically, central
Mm-hmm.
fatigue being where the brain's like, no thanks, like you can't do this now, I'm stopping you. And peripheral fatigue being where your limbs just are like, fuck, no thanks. And effectively, what they did is to wipe out the central fatigue part of this, they gave these guys an epidural and stuck them on a bike, and they competed them against people who obviously didn't have an epidural, and the people who'd had the epidural, which basically wiped out for want of a better word, the nervous system control of that area. It was just pedal, pedal, pedal. They absolutely destroyed the people who could feel everything still. And that stuck with me because
Mm-hmm.
I thought, if my brain is really stopping me from doing something, how deep can I go psychologically to get more out of my limbs? And I think once
Mm-hmm.
you figure that out, that actually your brain wants to stop you doing something because it's scared that actually it's not going to get as much oxygen, or it's not going to get as much fuel because you're going to use it elsewhere. But we know that we have far more capacity outside of that. And I think if you are willing to go, shut up, like, let's see what we can do here. I think that takes a really different headspace. I think that's the unlocking of something very, very different, a very different beast. And you see that in some people when you're like, okay, they're going to stop in 2 reps and they somehow get 7 more. I'm like, fair enough. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important thing to note. It's just because you think you've had enough doesn't mean you actually have had enough.
Yeah, so for people listening, you have central fatigue and peripheral fatigue. Central fatigue generally comes from the top down, comes from the brain, and it's a way of your body and your brain trying to protect itself. So when it starts to regulate things like core temperature, perhaps getting too high, it then drops down your performance in order to keep things in a what's called a homeokinetic range, which just means you're not completely fixed at homeostasis. You're actually moving in a little bit of a range, but it's still keeping it within that. Whereas peripheral fatigue is like there's actually such a buildup of things like metabolites in your limbs, you just physically cannot use those muscles any further. And pretty much all the time, it's going to be central fatigue that's limiting you when it comes to people doing leg extensions, people doing bicep curls, people actually like really pushing themselves to that level of failure. It's always going to be something from the top down saying, I can't do anymore. This is painful. Pain is a huge one as well. And
Yeah.
what I think we've learned over the years is that ability to separate and almost be like an observer of that pain and try to look at it almost like you're having a bird's eye view of yourself, like a third person view. You can acknowledge that it's painful, but actually I tap in and say, well, can my muscles physically do more? Yes. Watch this, go, watch this, go. And your ability to just keep on cracking out those reps is possible. It's not enjoyable. It is painful, but you can physically continue to get those reps out if you're not tapping yourself out mentally. And this isn't just us like talking in a motivational sense. This is proven in a lot of science, a lot of research, and a lot of data that shows central fatigue really is a key limiter in performance for a lot of people.
One of the best examples of this was, I want to say in the Olympics, but I think that's wrong. I think it was in like the Commonwealth Games. The two brothers, I think, who do the triathlon.
Brownlee brothers.
Yeah. Do you remember what I remember? I've seen this many times where his legs just go and he just cannot stand up. His mind is willing him forward at this point because he's still going, but his legs are just like, there's nothing I can give you now that will help you. And that's a prime example, where people just basically crash. And that's where, we see this, as you say, in the gym. Sometimes you think you've got one more in you and, it's just not there. And you end up having to wait with a bar on your chest. Help.
And that's an example of more peripheral, right? That's you ran out of fuel, you ran out of carbohydrates, your body doesn't have any more energy, your body physically can't do it anymore. Yeah,
absolutely. Whereas if it was central, obviously, he, realistically could have carried on running, but he'd just been, I'm done now. I'm absolutely knackered, and would just started walking. But the guy couldn't even walk in a straight line.
Central fatigue would have caused him to drop his pace by 20%, say.
Yeah.
And he actually finishes the race fine physically, but 20% slower.
Yeah,
whereas
comes last.
Peripheral's like, I physically can't do it.
So just the kind of second part on that, would you say, and this is something I think is a good idea, that I encourage people to go beyond the RIR to come back, not to work up slowly. So if it's in the first block of a first week of a training cycle, obviously we would encourage people to start slowly. But when it comes to actually finding what an RIR is, I think it really helps to find failure first. And then work back from that point, not go, right, this was RIR 5. Next set, I'm going to go RIR 4, and we'll see what happens. Would you say that's a fair thing to go with?
Definitely. Yeah, you have to know where those limits are in order to be able to probe them and get close to them.
100%. Next question then, this folds on quite nicely. When it comes to tracking your strength and progress, what is the best way to do it?
There isn't a single best way. The best way to track it is the way that you keep consistent with and that you keep up with best. I've tried apps, I've tried physically writing things, I've tried phone notes. The one that currently sticks to me is actually a phone note. I like having a running phone note that has a list of like major exercises that I like to repeatedly do. So it might be rack pulls, and I'll put, whenever I hit a certain amount of reps with a certain weight, I'll put that number into that note. I might write like RIR1 or failure or whatever with that. And then when in my training cycle, I next come back around to rack pulls, I open up that phone note, there it is. I know what I previously did and what I'm either trying to beat or what I'm trying to, like say after coronavirus, what I'm now trying to get back to. So I went back in the gym doing rack pulls to, 4 or 5 reps, RIR1 or so. And I can look back and see what I was doing previously, what I'm now trying to shoot for. And that's what kind of keeps me motivated with that lift. Some people will prefer to use apps to track it. Some people like going in with an old school pen and paper. I think the important thing is that you just have some idea of it. People like to think they can remember and that it's going to be in their head. But realistically, when you come back to an exercise after 6 weeks of doing it or something, the chances are that you're going to perfectly accurately remember what that weight was, how many reps you got, and how it felt is pretty slim. You're probably just going to tell yourself that you did way better than you actually did.
I viewed this question slightly differently, but now you've said that, perhaps you're right. But when it says here, when it comes to tracking your strength and progress, what is the best way to do it? So physically, speaking of tracking, that's how I kind of read this as, how do you kind of follow that you're making more strength? But I could go either way. I'm just going to answer that just in case that either one of us is right here. So when it comes to tracking your strength, as in how do you know you're getting stronger? But I think the proof there is in the making. If you're actually looking to get stronger, then effectively over time, your 1RM should get stronger, your 80% 1RM should get stronger, and more reps should be done. But it's worth mentioning, and there's a couple of questions here, and I think there's a gray area, and I think I just want to make sure that we're clear. Strength is different to hypertrophy. So strength in absolute is how much can you shift, how much force can you produce in one singular movement, for example. And hypertrophy then training would be looking at volume. So overall volume accumulation, how much can I do in total? So, reps times sets times weight would be an example of that. So it's, there's a couple of questions here, which is like, I'm getting stronger, but not getting bigger. Why is that? Well, that's not necessarily, they're not two things which are conjoined. Just because you're getting stronger doesn't necessarily mean you're getting bigger. But if you're getting bigger, there's a likelihood you are getting stronger. It's just, I think it's important not to muddle up those two terms in terms of understanding strength and hypertrophy. Anything to add in there?
Yeah, I'd say understand how, even if you're physique focused, how strength facilitates those goals and works synergistically with them. I would say 95% of the people that I train with, I don't always regularly train with someone, but if I just hop in with a friend, a family member, whatever it is, someone wants to do a training session with me, these people don't push their weights enough, and I'm always telling them to up it. I'm saying, you've got more in you. Go the next weight up, go the next weight up, go the next weight up. And there's always a mental battle of like, oh, but this is the weight I use. This is what I do for tricep push downs for 10 reps. Every single time, and this ties into the last question, that you achieve your reps to the certain RIR that you're targeting, up the weight, up the weight, up the weight, up the weight. You always want to be pushing towards doing more and getting better over time. It may mean that you fall 1 or 2 reps shy of where you previously did, but then you're getting stronger by aiming to do a couple more reps and get back up to those 10 reps, for example. And once you've achieved those 10 reps with the higher weight, you up it again and you rinse and repeat the cycle. Never feel that it's a static thing of like, oh, I squat 60 kilos. You squat 60 kilos this week for this amount of reps. What are you going to do next week? What about the week after that? The week after that? Always look to be pushing it.
100%. When it comes to RIR and sets and reps, do you get drop off in your reps as the sets go on?
Depends on the exercise. I think massively depends on the exercise, and you really have to take it set by set. Also depends on the point of the workout that you're in. If you're right towards the end of a pull workout, and sometimes my forearms are just like burning, I can barely even like grip a bar properly, and you're really struggling at the end, then yeah, you're going to get drop off. Whereas if you're doing, bicep and tricep supersets, you're probably going to be fine. You're just getting a bit more pumped with every set that you do. I think it really depends. What I always give on weight a little bit if I need to. So if you're aiming to do, say, 3 sets of 8 reps and you're using a certain weight, but by the second set you're only getting like 6 or 7 reps, just go down 1 weight, go down the kind of smallest increment that you can, try to push towards those 8 reps. And then, like we said there, if you're actually getting stronger by that next week, maybe you'll be able to keep the weight the same for all of those sets. And that's actually a way to get stronger as well. It's not that you're using more absolute load, but you're able to do more reps with that certain load. Like you said about hypertrophy, you're kind of increasing total volume load. You're doing more over time. You are progressively overloading. You're just not necessarily stacking more on the bar.
Yeah, I agree. There's some exercises which I never get any drop off with. So things like lateral raises, I tend to get, if I go like lower reps, if I'm like 8 to 10, I tend to get very little drop off. I might get a rep down in the last set. But if I do things like squats, I always get drop off for squats unless I have like inordinate amount of rest. And even then I could drop off a rep or 2. Shoulder press, almost every time I do shoulder press, I get drop off. I don't know about you, but I get that like confidence where I'm like, set of 12, here we go. And I get like 6 in, I'm like, yeah, I've got 15 here. And I get to like 8, I'm like, oh shit, I might have only got 10. Yeah. It's like instant fatigue.
Isn't that interesting that your extreme on one end, the example you give is lateral raises for shoulders, and the extreme on the other end is shoulder presses for shoulders. Like you just have to take it exercise by exercise. We can't possibly say, do this, do that, and give something prescriptive for it.
No, I agree. I think more often than not, I tend to get drop off on exercises where I can happily and mechanically shift more weight. So for me, I'm quite short, so I can squat fairly well. So I can lift more weight, which means I'm more likely to get fatigued by that first set and have drop off. The same things for like deadlifts and bench press. I tend to get a lot of drop off, but things like lateral raises, as I said, some arm work, I maybe don't get drop off all the time, but things like dips, I get drop off every time I do dips. And I think that's just because I can really empty the tank on that first set, and then I'm a bit cooked then going forward. But as you say, that's at the end of the workout. If I did them at the start of the workout, would I have the same thing?
Yeah.
Not sure. Okay. Okay, that kind of covers quite a few of those questions. So we've kind of covered this before, but just quickly for someone who may have just joined us on the podcast, advice on setting up calories and macros.
So we would always recommend starting off with tracking what you genuinely do eat. And this means a true measure of everything that goes in your mouth that contains calories, is the phrase that I like to use. Make sure that you're tracking that over a good few days, and then also tracking your weight alongside that, ideally, because you need to know where your maintenance might sit. If your calories are coming in at, let's say, 2,000 and the weight is maintaining over that time, then you know where your calorie maintenance actually falls. And nothing is going to replace knowing that. You know, you're not going to be able to get purely accurate information from no matter how many calculators that you do. They can give you a good rough idea, but nothing will replace actually seeing how your body responds. We often get questions like, oh, I'm eating in a calorie deficit, but I'm not losing weight. What's going on? What's the problem? Well, you're then not eating in a calorie deficit. Or I'm eating in a surplus, but I'm not gaining. What's the issue? Well, you're not in a surplus. That's the issue. You, by definition, you cannot be in a surplus and not gaining. You know, you are maintaining. So understand what that actually means for your body, where those levels are for you. And then that's where you can roll from there. That's where you can then decide how much you're going to add on in terms of how quickly do you want to gain, how much do you want to lose. Do you want to dive into the specifics a bit more on that? I'll let you take that.
No, I mean, you've covered all the things that I would say to cover there. And it's important that you do take that time, as Jack said, to work out those macros in the first place and to work out body weight. I had a conversation with someone, again, recently about, you know, how did you work out my calories? What's my TDEE? What's my BMR? And I said, you know, the thing in none of these calculators ever will take into consideration is how metabolically adapted you are either way, how, what your training history is, what your, you know, what we estimate our body fat percentage to be is just, for some people, it can be quite accurate. But when left to your own devices, everyone's going to shave off 5%, aren't they, realistically, if you're not being brutally honest with yourself. You know, if we all had to upload a photo to the gram or to Facebook or something and said, hey guys, what's my body fat percentage? You'd have a couple of honest people who'd probably get ridiculed by everyone else. Hey, don't be so horrible. But in general, these are probably the straight talking people. And everyone else has been a bit nice. So it's important that you actually eat to your physiology. You know, you eat to what you are now and then calculate it off that. One of the things I've recommended people, go on.
Even for body fat, you measure that there. Even direct measures of body fat are indirect. What people think are direct, you know, oh, I've done a body fat test, so it must be this.
Yeah.
They're just using assumptions and calculations. They use assumptions based on fat-free mass compared to fat mass and the amount of water that is in those two different types of tissues, and whether you're using air displacement, whether you're using DEXA, whether you're using BIA analysis, all of them are just best guesses. So it's ridiculous to base your actual behavior on what's a best guess when you could actually just look at what your body does realistically.
100%. And it's important then to, I think, make sure that whichever way you're going to go, you don't sell yourself short with it. So when you are setting up then your calories, I find it's one of the things that is quite difficult, but I do get clients to do, is something called a free track. And that's basically where I say, look, what I want you to do is track everything in a book for the next 5 days and write everything down, all the weights and everything, write that all down. And then on the 5th day, put it all into MyFitnessPal, because subconsciously, a lot of people, and you can get this from their history, will tend to then slow their eating down when they figure out how much they're eating. So they might get to 2,000 calories and go, wow, that's how much I eat a day. Okay. probably shouldn't eat anything now. But actually, in a normal day, you'd have still had dinner on top of that. And so it's important that you don't, we always say to clients, don't change anything just because we're viewing it, but equally don't allow yourself to change something just because you're viewing it for the first time. Because the only thing you're basing that assumption that 2,000 calories is too much off is the fact that, everyone else is eating 1,300 calories, or Bridget down the road is only having 1,100 calories. It's important that you eat to you, because if not, you'll sell yourself short. And if you're going to go into a dieting phase and you start at 2,400 calories as a female, a 50-kilo female, that could be quite a good amount. That's a good place to start. But if you just dive in at 1,500, you'll probably make some initial fat loss gains. But then once that plateaus, it's going to be a difficult shout from there on out, to keep adapting and make headway. Okay. Next question. I love training and really want to step it up. What would be something or two things we could mention that would help them to do so? So without knowing their whole training regime, on average, what would be two things that you could give the average Joe? If you walked into a gym now and bet that, say, 2 bits of advice you could give would help many people in that gym, what would it be?
If you want to step up your training, you could try to introduce some intensifiers. That's something that I think we quite like, and we use to good effect in clients' blocks from time to time. We might bring in an intensified block. Intensifiers are generally they tend to be ways of extending your sets, but they can also be based around other things like reps as well. So if I give some examples of a few, an intensifier could be something like finishing your set of bicep curls, hitting that to failure, and then finishing off with as many reps as possible, partials at the end, where you work in the most mechanically advantageous position. So that being from kind of fully extended to just like halfway up. That's what's going to require the least amount of effort once you've already hit failure. And you may be able to crack out another 5 or 6 partials at the end of your set. So you've extended that set on. Or it may be something like an isometric hold. So you might want to do 8 reps of Bulgarian split squats. Then at the end, you just descend halfway down into that split squat and you hold that position for 10 seconds, really flexing the quad hard, driving that front foot into the floor as hard as possible. And it's a way that you've isometrically contracted that muscle and have found a way to push the quad past what you would have normally done on that set. Or it could be a more common one that people know about is drop sets. You finish off your last set of an exercise with a drop set. Maybe you do a little double drop down. That's a way to push that set on, get more volume in, get more intensity in. But all of these types of methods are, as they say on the tin, intense. You have to be really careful with how you implement them, how kind of often you put them in there, and how you're also recovering from them. So it may just be something that comes in for a block before you then deload, and then you also at the same time reduce volume a little bit. So if we've been really driving volume upwards for a certain number of blocks for a client with deloads in between, when it then comes to that intensified block, we'll bring that volume down a little bit, and then we might be able to ramp things back up after a deload post intensified block. But then you have to take those intensifiers out if you're going to be bringing that volume back up, because we can't just infinitely get more intensity and more volume. That's my one. You give the second.
Mine would be kind of a backwards answer, but I would probably strip away a lot of the volume that people do. So when I see people's programs for the first time, I think, holy crap, if I did that, I'd be crippled. And that's because a lot of people, I think, add volume to make up for their lack of intensity. And there's going to be a few people who get their backs up when they hear that, oh no, like I can handle all this volume. The truth is, if I give you 4 exercises in a session and said, hey, go and hit these 4 exercises for 3 sets each, say, but that's all you get to do today, and you have to make that workout work for you, you're almost guaranteed that these people are going to put more effort into those 4 exercises than they would do if they had, say, 7. And so, if I had 7 exercises to do, if Jack, you wrote me a program and you put 7 exercises into my pull session, I'd be looking at that 6th and 7th one thinking, right, I'm going to have to save some energy to get there. And that is just not the idea of training. You know, that completely defies the
Mm.
object, as we were talking about earlier, of RIR and intensifying. So sometimes when I write myself programs, I overcook it. So I increase my volume. I do a block one where I do like the bare minimum volume I know that I'll need to make a difference. Then in my second block, I'll increase it a bit. And in my third block, I'll go ham. And sometimes I get that very wrong. And I'm far too maybe egotistical and think, oh, I'm superhero, I can do this. And then by the time that like fourth exercise comes along, I'll do 2 sets. And I'm like, I just have nothing more to give right now. I'm broken. But the truth is, what I've learned there is that actually I've overcapacitated. I've gone over the capacity for which I can actually train efficiently. And beyond that point, I'm just basically adding junk volume. I can't do any more efficiently without just halving the weight and doing it aimlessly. So what I would say is,
I like that.
in tangent in conjunction with us talking about the importance of intensity, it's also really important that whatever exercise you do, you actually make count. You know, don't just put 7 exercises into a session because you really love training arms and you want to do 2, 3, 4 sets of different arm exercises at the end of the session. You know, do 1 set, but absolutely spank them, and you know your arms are going to be in bits anyway. You know, I used to always do two different arm exercises at the end of my sessions, and I've recently gone down to 1, but made it 4 sets instead of 2 exercises at 3. And I found that because it's only 1 exercise and I love training arms, I'm almost there like, how can I make the most of this? I'm going to push this to the very limits of my RIR because I'm only going to get 3 sets of this until next week. So what can I do to make the most? And that would be my tip. You know, don't just add volume because you're not getting a response. Question yourself. Am I actually working to a good RIR here, or am I pussyfooting about and going, I'll add another exercise because I don't really feel it? In fact, probably my easiest example of that is core training. We're both a big fan of very heavy kind of core exercises, right? Nice heavy weighted pull downs on the rope crunches, weighted Bosu ball crunches, things like that, because fundamentally they're good. But I get people when they say, oh, I don't feel these ab exercises at all. And I think, more volume isn't going to be better here. That's not going to solve the problem we've got. We want to be hitting these hard. That's the idea of doing weighted exercises. So how do we work around this?
Yeah, it makes me think, I won't name this client by name, just because I don't know if she wants to be named publicly, but I know she won't mind me sharing the story. One of the first things she said to me when she first came was that, oh, I'm just too good at core work. And I thought, oh yeah, fucking right. Let's find out. And just put in some really difficult exercises, really unstable exercises, things that really require like superior core control. And she kept coming back to me saying, we've got to regress this. We've got to regress this. You know, I can't even do 1 rep of this. I can't do 1 rep of that. And it's like, right. So what your core was too good for was crappy core circuits.
Yeah.
Was doing a couple of crunches, a body weight plank, and then some side bridges and rinse and repeating. You know, what you have to do is actually be able to progress those exercises on further. And I'll give the example with like lower body training. A big thing on Instagram's like finishers. Why do you need to finish your lower body? Why have you not, like, what are you trying to complete? Why have you not already worked that out hard enough to where you need a quote unquote finisher to top things off? And we might use the terminology finisher, depends how people define it. You know, there's nuances to it. But I think generally, if you're having to finish every glute session with some sort of 4 exercise circuit with a band, you actually probably would have got a lot more bang for your buck if you would have just really focused on getting great at hip thrusts and put a shit ton of volume towards them and squats earlier in your workout. You know, if you're someone, you know, if this person who asked this question, for example, wants to grow their lower body and is saying, how can I kind of take it up to the next level? Can you get absolutely elite at say 2 or 3 lower body exercises? Can you be like next level impressive at some sort of deadlift variation, some sort of hip thrust variation, and some sort of squat variation?
Yeah,
that should be what you're focusing on.
100%.
You know, there's not many people that you're going to see who can hip thrust over 150 kilos and have tiny glutes. That's just not the way that you're going to be able to do that. And the same way that people who can crack out 8 reps of squats with over 100 kilos generally aren't going to have tiny lower bodies. Like,
No.
you are going to be able to achieve those physique goals if you really take your training to that next level. And so instead of thinking, oh, well, I need to do these exercises that I normally do, then just add on junk volume and burn out and really fatigue my muscles and push things on in that way, maybe you should actually be doing more of the stuff that sucks, more of the stuff that's difficult, more of the stuff that is really hard to progress, and that will get you to that next level.
That's the painful stuff, right? The stuff we were talking about earlier, stuff that hurts.
Yeah, and it's like if someone said to you, right, I need you to be able to grow your glutes by 2 inches, right, in circumference in the next 2 months, or something terrible is going to happen to all your family, then you're not going to be doing banded circuits, are you? Your mind isn't going to go to, right, what I need to do is 3 sets of 30 frog pumps and some bodyweight abductions, and then leave the gym still with all my breath and muscle capacity. Like,
I'm
what
starting
you're
to see
going to be doing,
how you get such good client transformations now, Jack. Taking people's family members as hostage.
like, what you're going to be doing is really focusing on hip thrusts, really focusing on squats, really focusing on progressing all those compound moves and taking care of the big stuff. Take it, if you want to take it seriously, take the important stuff seriously and let the fluff fall by the wayside. You'll find that you don't need a lot of that fluff when you're really smashing the main work.
Yeah, I actually wasn't going to say this earlier because I didn't want to add confusion, but I'll say it now. I actually asterisk some of my exercises. So in my plan at the moment, I've got pull-ups asterisked, I've got good mornings asterisked, I've got leg extensions asterisked, I have bicep curls and lat raises. And they're basically exercises which I know that by the end of this program, I will have made a great amount of progress on. And it's not to say that I'm not going to make a lot of progress on any of the others. I just know that there are 5 exercises I lined up at the start of this block and went, I'm going to demolish this block, because one, the leg extensions is more of a rehab thing, to be honest. I would have put squats in, but the problem with my squat is that, one, I have good mechanics for a squat, so it tends to climb quite quickly. And my knee just isn't in a place where I can put my ego to the test with that yet and come away walking properly. So I've gone with leg extensions because that'll be good for my rehab. Lat raises, I know I can make a good improvement on. I made a really good improvement on during lockdown, but now obviously back in the gym, got more access to weights. That's something I want to punch a bit further forward.
So is this saying, like, when you see these exercises come up, you're like, right, time to turn it up a notch because you've got that asterisk?
Yeah, it's just exercises. It's like you said with the hip thrusts. They're exercises like my good mornings, for example. I know I want a big ass set of hamstrings. And the last time I had a good set of hamstrings, I could good morning over 100 kilos for sets of 6. So I know that if I can, climb and climb and climb, and I'm nowhere near that. I'm like 50 kilos at the moment. But I know that if I keep working at my good mornings and I keep climbing at the rate I'm climbing and I diet well to the goal I want to achieve, and I end up having a 100 kilo good morning again, the chances are my hamstrings are going to be pretty big. I don't see anyone having a 100 kilo good morning with small hamstrings. So it's like you said, you're not going to have a small lower body and be squatting sets of 8 at over 100 kilos. And this is exactly that mentality. I know that if I can keep good form with certain exercises like my lat raises, my good mornings, that I will be able to grow well in those areas. And the reason I didn't say it earlier is because I didn't want it to sound like I don't care about the rest. It's like, lat raises a third. I'll just piss around with these first 2 exercises and then I'll crack on with that one. It's more for me to say that by the time I get there, I should have still put a lot of effort into my first 2 because they're important. But by the end of this block, I will have improved this exercise a great deal because it's something that means a lot to me in terms of goals. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I like it. Have we got one final one?
We have one final one, and I think this is quite a good one. Somebody new to, let me just actually read this off the thing. So I'm new to nutrition and training. Do I need to read countless papers and scientific studies, or can you advise me in some ways I can learn this stuff without needing to do a university degree?
Yeah, get a coach. That's, if you want someone to distill it down for you and you want to learn from someone, get a coach is the best way.
Absolutely. Get one that's obviously scientific based. Not naming any
Yeah.
names here.
Get one who probably has a link in the description of this YouTube video.
Or Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you're listening on there.
Yeah, like, I think you can massively like squash down your learning time if you learn from someone else who has been there and is able to distill it down for you and explain it. I think we really take pride in being able to use that stuff with our clients, but communicate it in a way that is very actionable and is very understandable. If you're brand new to training and nutrition, it's not going to serve you to go and read a bunch of papers. You're not going to
No.
understand them. I don't mean that in an offensive way. It's, if someone handed me a paper on physics, I'm not going to understand it. I'm not inclined that way. I've not put in the time and effort to know it. So really understand that you can get this from other people. You could learn it yourself, but it's going to take you so much more time and so much more effort. I think it makes sense to have someone else distill it for you. Now, if you're adamant against getting a coach and you feel that you want to do it for yourself, you can go that way, but you're going to have to spend probably, what would you say, 5 to 10 times the amount of time going through it
Yeah,
by yourself.
possibly. Yeah. I think as well, it's worth noting that scientific studies aren't the be all and end all of what we do to get results. A lot of it is
Mm-hmm.
personal data collection. Jack said earlier, if you want to learn how to count your macros and calories, work on yourself first. What are you currently doing? And that's a huge thing. I think that when it comes to research, we've both read a lot of it, but that's not where the story starts. The story starts with a thought process of, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if this works. This is quite cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there any scientific data to back this up before I pour my heart and soul into it? No. Well, okay, then I'll go into it tentatively and see if there's, some experience I can gain from it. Or yes, wicked, let's go. But I think it's just important to underscore that research isn't where it starts. We both didn't, we didn't get into the gym because we love reading research. We got into reading research because we love the gym and we love health and exercise. And that helped to refine our process and actually get us faster results and more efficiently too. Energy saving. It's not the case that we had to go and explore and do our own research on ourselves. It's that we had ourselves as data, and then we found research to defend or to counter the things that we do.
Mm-hmm. And I should also add as well, we say jokingly, hire us. But it's also, I understand that you shouldn't take what we're saying for fact, because you shouldn't take what anyone says at face value, especially if you're new starting out in this. I made a lot of mistakes early on because I heard something from someone who was further along their journey than me and thought, therefore, it must be true, it must be gospel. Unfortunately, the kind of one measure of how much knowledge you have is not purely your physique. You can't say, right, there's no direct causation there. I've worded that and explained that terribly. Let me try and make it more concise. If you have a good physique, it doesn't mean that you have great knowledge.
Yep.
That's a better way to put it. And there's thousands of people on Instagram with fantastic physiques who they're going to say something and you're going to think, right, that must be true because they have that physique. But a lot of people get results in spite of what they do, not because of what they do. And just because someone looks good, it doesn't mean they couldn't look better if they were doing something different. So try to question things, try to keep an open mind, try to, if you can, find ways to back things up that you hear with data. I think that's great. I think it really does make sense to question things. There's general principles and rules for life, not just for fitness. If things sound too good to be true, they probably are. There's certainly a lot of claims out there in the training and nutrition space that make you promises that they can't actually deliver upon. And you also have to ask yourself, what is this person potentially trying to sell me on? If someone is an ambassador for a ketone supplement company and their name on Instagram is Keto Joe 123 and they're trying to get you into keto, there's probably a bit of a conflict of interest there. And so, yeah, it might not be as in your face as that, but understand that people really get sucked into like ideologies as well. And they associate with some type of being vegan, being keto, whatever it is. And they generally want to pull people into that sphere as well. Generally from a place that's pretty good-willing. A lot of the time they think it's helped them, so it'll help other people. But you have to be open-minded to the plethora of different things that can work for you, not just what someone's trying to sell you.
Thank you ever so much, as always, Jack. I think that's a perfect place for us to end there, leave on that bombshell. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Have a fantastic rest of the day. As always, do ping us any DMs, any questions. We're always happy to dive into those. If we can help you with anything else, let us know. But in the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we'll speak to you guys real soon. Take care for now. Bye-bye. We're going to be adding in a Q&A to the podcast in a few weeks' time. And to do that, we're going to need some questions from you guys. So do go over to our team Instagram page at JLX Coaching on Instagram, of course, and click the link in the bio, and it will take you to a quick Google form where you can fill in any of the questions you've got, and we will get to those in the podcast to come. As for coaching, you can also check the link in our Instagram bio for that, or go to the website, which is at the moment jacklenton.com, and you'll see the links to coaching there. Have a good day.